Hello, it's your friend Phil here, PMP Exam Study Group Advice. Thank you very much for the feedback that you gave me from your earlier meeting. I wanted to give you a few tips because it seems like a few things are missing. Everyone should prepare ahead of time on the learning system. If you're planning to take quiz A, everyone should take quiz A before coming into class. That would be my advice because those who have already taken those quizzes are at a competitive edge. They are already ahead of the curve. But it's important that everyone be on the same level coming into the study group, having studied the same quizzes, done the same things. The study group should not be where you are taking these full-length mock exams, okay? Beware of spoilers. Do not take away the joys of preparation or the learning experience. Because if you're coming into the class and you're learning from your peers who have already taken many of these quizzes, you may not completely agree with their point of view, and you may end up being confused. So peer pressure is not always productive, especially when you have not prepared adequately. There's a difference between someone who's coming to share ideas versus someone who's coming to learn, and I think the idea should be we're coming to share ideas, and from sharing ideas, we can learn, not learning stuff for the first time in the study group because you have not done as much as your colleagues. Does that make sense? Okay, let's move on. Other tips for PMP exam questions. So what I get from the feedback is some folks think the exam is made up of stuff that is promised. No, it's not. Nothing is promised to you in the world of the PMI. And I dare say that everything from experienced coaches is fair game, whether it's from Roy, whether it's from other people who have written these questions. They might sound outrageous, but nothing is off limits. And nothing should be expected from the PMI. For example, someone saying, oh, I know I'm definitely going to get an value. No, you're not. Don't expect it. But in the same vein, everything should be expected. So don't bank on just getting questions of a particular nature because you very well may not. And at the same time, you want to think that anything can be expected. Anything should be fair game. All right. So it's two mindsets, but they're really complementary. I do not expect PMI to bring out my favorite topic, but at the same time, I should expect my favorite topic and my worst topic and my topic where I'm medium performance in. I should expect all of them. You get what I'm saying? Okay. Not everything on the PMP exam is found in the pmbok guide. Contrary to what a lot of people think, they can find stuff on the exam in the pmbok guide, the Agile Practice Guide, maybe even the Scrum Guide. No, no, no. So talking about our Agile deck, it was created from various sources over a decade. Roy has been doing this for over 2-3 decades now. And a lot of what he put in those slides, you would find in books, many other books, but not the pmbok guide and not the Agile Practice Guide, even at that. And I'll just say that a lot of the questions that you can expect to find on PMI exams are not always in the guide attributed to those exams. So whenever you come across a concept or terminology on any of these courses or mock exams, just know that it's likely that some of them are not going to be found in the pmbok guide. Let me give you an example. Burn rate. You won't find it in the pmbok guide, but it has been known to come out on the exam. See? All right. So just keep on studying and taking note of any strange words you find and just make sure you understand them to the best of your ability. All right. Let's talk about this question from the Agile exam. So this will be a quick tip on the agile and hybrid questions you get on the PMP exam. And from feedback, I've heard it is hard to distinguish what is agile and what is hybrid because sometimes they just mix agile and predictive up. And it's hard for you to distinguish. Is this a pure agile question? Is this a hybrid? So when we talk about hybrid, a lot of times it could go both ways. You could find some discussion about that thing in the world of agile, and you could find some discussion about that thing in the world of predictive. So this particular question on the screen is really more of a common sense question. I wouldn't even say it's agile or it's hybrid or it's predictive. It's just common sense based on the definitions and based on what you know about those things. So when you take a look at the question, what document contains the initial features, cost estimates, and time estimates. In other words, high level cost, high level scope, high level schedule. That's all this question is saying. But you need to be able to read through it. That when you take a look at the options, the product backlog, of course, has nothing to do with cost. It does not contain initial schedule estimates. You know that. So it's not the product backlog. The product roadmap, shows you the plan to deliver the product over a period of iterations or sprints. And this is talked about in the PMBOK guide quite well. They give you a visual, they show you the release plan, they show you how everything is interwoven in chapter 6. So you know it's not the product roadmap. Let's read the definition of a product roadmap. So if you take a look at page 216, you can see in the image, the picture tells you the story of what product vision, roadmap, release plans, and iteration plans are all about. So the product vision is the vision you have for the product over time. It reads here, Agile release planning provides a high-level summary timeline of the release schedule based on the product roadmap and the product vision for the product's evolution. But just think about the term roadmap. What does it mean? A roadmap just shows the goals and the objectives and a timeline. That's it. And you should be ready to roll with any of these definitions that you find on the exam. The product roadmap should show you the timeline, just like you can see on page 216. It says relationship between product vision, release planning, and iteration planning. So you can think about the roadmap as a map for how this product is going to be delivered, developed, and ultimately released to the customer over time. It says, since features represent value to the customer, the timeline provides a more easily understood project schedule. And there you have it on page 216. I like to think about everything that is on page 216 as your view of what a roadmap could look like, right? Your roadmap should show the milestones, these overarching milestones of releases. That is a core part of your roadmap. But your roadmap, looking at this question, if you take a look at what's on page 216 and you take a look at what is in this question, it does not have time estimates. Showing a timeline does not mean time estimates. So if I were you, I would approach the question like this. It cannot be the product backlog. It cannot be the product roadmap, because as we've seen on page 216, if we look at that figure 6-20, that has nothing to do with cost. We don't see cost mentioned there. You can get rid of that. Okay? And then the scope statement has nothing to do with cost. It does not have cost estimates. The best option, based on what you should know as you prepare for the exam, is, of course, the project charter. So questions like this, you deal with them by asking, what is option A, B, C, and D? And which one of those is closest to what is described? So this should not come as a surprise. This is absolutely fair game on the exam. This is not made up stuff. This is not something that someone just decided on a whim to throw in. Actually, the person who put these questions together has been in the game even much longer than I have, like 10 years longer than I have. This person got certified. And actually, it's a group of folks who worked on putting these together, a team of folks. So my recommendation, when you come across a question that throws you for a loop, just try to understand the options and use the process of elimination. All right, still on making sense of strange words on the exam. The words may sound strange. However, based on knowledge, one should be able to distinguish what exactly they're talking about and what they're not. So let's look at this example here. These were some of the words that came up in your study. Heavy process. Think about that. What does a heavy process mean? It means the process is not lightweight, like agile processes are lightweight. Lightweight means they're few and they are not filled with things that could be stripped off. And even in cases where those things have to be done, they absolutely have to be done, they're still heavy. They're not heavy because they are wasteful. They're heavy because it's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So when you take a look at the PMBOK guide and the 49 processes, you could say that is heavy. That doesn't mean it's not valuable, but it is heavy. All right. Now, when we talk about embellished, that is not a good word. When you talk about embellished processes, these are processes where there's fluff, there's stuff added, and really you shouldn't be working in that fashion, putting embellished stuff into your processes. And that's where the concept of lean comes in. See, you want to make your processes as lean as possible. You don't want them to have fat. That's embellished. So when you take a look at the question that was raised from the advanced bank, again, from my esteemed colleagues who wrote that, I think that's fair game on the exam to use the word embellished, to use the word heavy, because in the world of agile, we want to be what? Lightweight. That word lightweight is very prevalent in the world of agile, isn't it? Lightweight processes. These are terms that are used quite a lot in the industry. So in the question that asked some to the effect of your team is doing a retrospective and they're looking for what could be improved, right? It would come down to two options, wouldn't it? It would come down to an option of look for processes that are used heavily on projects. That is not a bad thing. Using a process heavily on a project does not mean you're doing anything bad. However, using a heavy embellished process could be bad. Let's take a look at that question real quick. Here's the question again. Your team is doing a retrospective meeting and looking for factors that indicate processes could be improved. Which of the following is an indicator that a process can be improved? Now you can use the process of elimination again. Let's look at A. Look for processes that are used heavily on projects with a sequential or waterfall lifecycle. Now, that sounds negative at first, but they're not talking about heavy processes. They're talking about processes that are used heavily. In other words, they're used a lot. That's not bad, using a process a lot. It really depends on the process, right? So we can leave A for now. Let's look at B. Look for heavy, embellished, and once used processes. This, even though it's once used, is immediately looked at as fat. Embellished is a poor term, and embellished processes are wasteful. Even if you used it once, it could create problems on a project because it's embellished. C, look for processes with SMART goals. That's not bad. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time framed. And then D, look for processes that were not created internally. Processes not created internally are not necessarily bad, right? The Scrum framework, a lot of companies use it. It's not created internally. So with that said, things that could be improved, you want to look for those that are more of a threat. So it won't be that that's a threat. It won't be that that's a threat, right? Between A and B, this is not the worst of them. It's B. And that's why when you talk about selecting an answer in a question like this, you want to just weigh, which of these is the worst. And that's the worst. And that's how you should proceed when you're taking a look at questions like this. So I took this mock exam myself before putting it out there. And I found that this mock exam will teach a lot. So it might seem hard and a bit, a bit extreme, but this mock exam has been used to train several people for the ACP exam, not even the PMP, the ACP exam. So it's very advanced, but it's meant to open up your eyes to the possibility and more language and a lexicon that you may not have seen. As far as I think it goes, this is a very good and realistic presentation as far as how prepared you should be to face the difficult stuff. So if you're able to get through this without squirming and you're able to at least finish the test, it's a very good exercise. So I would highly recommend it. And that's why we put it out there, because folks wanted something more challenging. And honestly, I think a lot of folks who have not in its entirety read the Agile Practice Guide and the Scrum Guide and the PMBOK Guide, they may struggle with this exam, because this exam, like I said, is put together by someone who has over 30 years of experience and has been very heavily involved with the PMI. So it's a very solid exam. It's hard. It has some terminology that you may not be familiar with, but my advice is to drink the Kool-Aid and learn. All right. So in closing, remember the product roadmap. You won't find a full definition like this, but the product roadmap should show the anticipated sequence of deliverables over time. Just keep that in mind. The other question regarding when the team changes, re-estimate. Yeah, this is what Roy talked about, right? So because velocity is based on a specific set of people, whenever you get a new set of people, or whenever you get even one person changed, you can expect the velocity to be affected. Remember, we talked about the 5 stages of team development. And moreover, we talked about using empirical data. And using empirical data is based on reality. And if a new person is added, that's reality. And you do need to factor that in. All right. In closing, I want to say believe in the process. So from what I'm getting, there's some trepidation and fear and freaking out that, oh, am I really ready? You got to remember, we've been doing this for a very long time. We've helped thousands of project managers achieve this certification. If you follow the process, you'll be good. And I also want to challenge you, if you are getting to the training or you're getting to the study group, if you get into the study group and you feel you are getting less than you would have liked, it's either a sign that you're not going in prepared, or it's a sign it's not working for you. And you might just want to pull back and do something different, because not everyone works and learns well in a study group session. Some of us do, some of us don't. And if it's not working for you, it's probably a good question. Should I continue or not? Because I know that some folks will turn up to the study group clueless. They've not studied. They've not gone as far as others have. They've not read the Agile Practice Guide not even read it, right? Not read the PMBOK Guide. And, they've kind of been scrimping around, and they're relying on the study group to get them to dry land. No, it will not. You do not go into a study group without preparing. You got to do what many of the other folks in the study group have done. Many of the folks in the study group have taken almost every single quiz that we have in those banks, read the Agile Practice Guide, read the PMBOK Guide, read the Scrum Guide. All right. So that's my advice. And maybe if you feel you've gotten to the point where you've outgrown the group, then yeah, maybe you should spend time studying instead. I'm just keeping it real for you, because when it comes to study groups, you've got this paint drip effect going on, where some folks have very deep and broad knowledge, and some folks, they don't have any knowledge that's deep. It's so broad, but it's not deep enough to sustain a sensible conversation for them to learn and for them to give at the same time. You get what I'm saying? Just keeping it real for you. I hope this clarifies some of the stuff for you. Keep going, pedal to metal, do what you need to do. Do not rely on the group to educate you. All right. You got to get educated and come into the group, so that we got people like minds at all levels. But again, study group doesn't work for everyone. I hope this helps you. Take care and bye for now.